This is the Neurosurgery Podcast.
Welcome to the Neurosurgery Podcast. JP and I are super delighted. We have with us Mick Perez-Cruet. Mick is one of the most phenomenal neurosurgeons I know. He is a great innovator in the world of spine, in the world of MIS. He comes from the legacy of Rick Fessler, one of JP's mentors. I've learned so much from Mick over the years. I've known him about 27 years, I think, is how far we go back. But Mick, welcome to the podcast. Please introduce yourself to our audience. Let them know a little about where you're at, where you're from, how you trained, and your passions.
Well, Mike, thanks so much, and thank you so much for the invitation. And I really admire JP and of course Mike Wang is we love Mike, and thanks for doing this. Just to give you maybe a brief background. Um, my mother was Swiss, my dad was Puerto Rican. I was born in Washington D.C. I lived in three countries: United States and Canada and Puerto Rico, and we moved around a lot. My dad was in the army. He was also a psychiatrist. My mother was a nurse. But just a brief educational background. Starting off at college, was in a small liberal arts college in the middle of Iowa called Grinnell College. Then I went on to do graduate work at the University of South Florida, where I did a master's in chemistry under Dr. Dean Martin and studied red tide that causes respiratory problems. And that's where I really started to get into medicine. And I took some med school courses, and that's where I thought it was so important. And I felt that there was a need for individuals that understood science because I used to teach medical students how to do laboratory experiments and recognized that there was a kind of a chasm between the physician and the scientist. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be neat if I could contribute in that arena in medicine? Ended up getting into Tufts Medical School in Boston on a United States Air Force scholarship and was fortunate enough to match in neurosurgery at Baylor under Bob Grossman. Um, and then had a great experience there where I really fell in love with spine. Then did a 4-year active duty Air Force commitment. I was at Wilford Hall in San Antonio, where I continued to develop my interest in minimally invasive spine surgery, helped to establish the neurosurgery component of the air transportable hospital, which I think was the biggest accomplishment when I was in the Air Force. And then after went and did a year fellowship with Rick Fessler up at Rush in Chicago. The CINN under Leonard Cirillo was there as well. And it was that time where Rick and I just took off. That was 2001, and there was an explosion of MIS. At that time, the sextant from Medtronic was developed with a group of really outstanding docs, Dr. Larry Koo, Mike Heisey, Luis Pimenta, Reginald Davis. We developed the Pathfinder system, which it was my idea in this group to develop a perk screw system that had extender rods from the heads of the multi-axial pedicle screws. And that seems to have morphed into most systems that are currently out there. And then had a big interest in development. We wrote a number of textbooks. I was at Rush for a little bit as faculty, and then came to Michigan, where I started the Michigan Head and Spine Institute. We grew it to the largest private practice in the state of Michigan. Collaborate with Oakland University, where I'm a full professor in doing stem cell research with Dr. Rasul Chaudhry. We've been very productive. Continue to develop technologies. I've got a number of patents. They're all listed on the MI for Spine website if anybody wants to look at them. And I've managed to work with companies like Thompson Surgical. We developed Thompson MIS. developed the bone back press, which recycles bone from the surgical site, an inner body that allows injection of bone through the implant holder into the disc space. And I love innovating. And I'm currently in a solo practice because I really enjoy my independence. And I'm part of the practice, Michigan Minimally Invasive Neurosurgical Institute. My partner is Dr. Stephen Rapp, his son Aaron Rapp, I trained and was my fellow. And I just love doing what I'm doing.
Well, I can already tell you that this is one of those occasions where we're going to have you back because there's so much to unpack here. We were chatting before the recording started about your various hobbies and all these different hats that you wear. So we'll already give you just a few minutes in the invitation to come back and unpack some more of these things. And I know we're going to focus today on the minimally invasive spine, the technology, the innovation, and the MINS Society meeting that's coming up. And we're going to talk all about that. But before we dive deep into that, I want to take one moment to detour about something else that you and I have in common. And it's not just that we both had a mentor named Rick Fessler or another mentor named Dean Martin. I think mine was different. He taught me a little bit about vibrato and drinking scotch, different Dean Martin. But the way I first met you was at the CSNS. And so if you could just talk a little bit before we dive into the spine side of things about how you got involved in organized neurosurgery in that area, the public policy. I'm sure it ties in with your service in the military, which we're very grateful for. But talk a little bit about how you got involved in the CSNS and how that sparked your interest and what you do with them these days.
So I give total credit to Mark Hadley. We all know Mark Hadley is down at the University of Alabama, and wonderful man, a very prolific publisher. I think he was number one at Barrows, coming out in published manuscripts. And Mark and I were both in the Air Force, and I spent a rotation while I was a med student out with Mark. He was at Traverse Air Force Base at the time. Mark was climbing up the political um, ladder in organized neurosurgery and said, Mick, there's this organization called the Council of State Neurosurgical Societies, and would you like to be part of that? I believe that was 1999. And so I joined as a delegate, and I continued to be involved. And what I loved about the Council of State Neurosurgical Societies is we get a lot done. We don't get perhaps the credit that the leadership and the Congress or the AANS get, um, but we really have a wonderfully committed group of incredibly intelligent neurosurgeons, including yourself, JP, that are super motivated to advance the field of neurosurgery from a social economic standpoint. You learn so much about the workings of medicine through that organization. And I will be the first to say that um, I don't feel I'm on the same level as many of those individuals in that organization. They're super smart, super intelligent, super motivated. I was a B student. They're all A students. I can't keep up with them. And they're great. And I love them. We have a group in there that has been so dedicated and has been there for as long or almost as long as I have. And they keep coming back. And they keep coming back despite not getting perhaps the recognition that you might get being a president of the AANS or the CNS, but we get a lot of things accomplished. So it's a great organization. I encourage younger neurosurgeons to get involved because they learn so much of how the mechanism of medicine works.
Mick, that's a great tour de force, and you brought up so many things to talk about. I mean, shout out to Mark Hadley, shout out to the Pathfinder pedicle screw system, amazingly successful. Um, talking about the CSNS, I think that's important. We don't talk about it enough. Obviously, you have great passion for what you do in neurosurgery, in spine, in medicine, and patient care. What exactly is the CSNS? Because I don't think most people know what the Council of State Neurosurgical Societies really is. Like, is what? Tell us what you see it as.
So the CSNS is the social economic arm of neurosurgery. It represents all of neurosurgery, and the way the representation is set out, it's much like Congress or the Senate. So for every 50 neurosurgeons in a state, they have one delegate that they can send to the Council of State Neurosurgical Society. So in Michigan, we have three. California has a lot because of the amount of neurosurgeons in the state. And what we do, the primary thing that we do is we review resolutions. It's a resolution based organization. So a resolution basically addresses many different things in neurosurgery. For instance, whereas the reimbursement for Medicare is dropping precipitously, and whereas you know it's affecting neurosurgeons to not accept Medicare patients and to drop Medicare, uh, you know, be it resolved that we try to allow um, a national education of our patients to realize that in the future you may not have neurosurgical care because they all left Medicare, and you're paying into this 1.45% of your income, and up to 2.5. So this can change. It can go up the ranks. It can go to our Washington committee, and then Katie Arico takes it to our senators and congressmen, and they make them aware that your constituents aren't going to have neurosurgical care when they retire and rely on Medicare, and you better fix it. You better stop dinging us and reducing our value. That's what the council does. So it is so important to not only the survival of our profession, but to healthcare delivery. That's how impactful the council can be.
Yeah, and it was a real privilege to get to meet you at those meetings. Major credit and gratitude to Mike Steinmetz, who introduced me to the CSNS and got me involved. I was a socioeconomic fellow with them in the previous cycle, and my entire tenure with the organization has been under the leadership of Lou Tumialan and his. Sometimes it seems like a divine passion to repeal Section 6001 of the ACA, and that all started with resolutions, just as you say, and that's come to define a lot of my participation in the organization in the past year, where you and I met. But having said that, for that organization that brought us together and that does so much good work for neurosurgeons and our patients in the states, let's talk about the fun stuff, your passion, the tech, the innovation, the MIS, and of course the MINS Society with your upcoming meeting. So maybe first tell us a bit about the MINS Society itself, and then we'll pivot and talk about the upcoming meeting.
So the MINS was, I started this. The concept has been about 20 years. The organization actually started about 16, 17 years ago, and we're now having our 15th annual meeting, which will be held in Los Sueños, Costa Rica, March 12th to the 14th. You can look at the website www.minsociety.com. And why am I passionate about this? Is I have the opportunity to get some real leaders together, that are true masters, not only of spine MIS, but of cranial MIS, endovascular. It's not only neurosurgery. It's orthopedics MIS leaders. It's motion preservation. It's ENT leaders, plastic leaders in this arena, and we all get together and we really give great talks. You come out of there saying, gosh, I'm going to do that this way. And so it really is exciting. I have a tremendous passion. I try to get the the funding, so if a resident or a med student or a fellow wants to come, we cover their full expense. But the most important thing is, as you know, both of you, a national meeting. I have a presentation, a couple at the upcoming spine section, and lo and behold, I have 2 minutes. 2 minutes, okay, for each presentation. Now, I understand you want to have a lot of people presenting, more people there. But the reality is 2 minutes, I show us two, four, three, four slides. That's it. You really can't get anything that you can really sink your teeth into. We give 20 minutes per talk.
Wow.
That's a lot of time to talk about, you know, a lot of different things. So hopefully each talk you will get something out of. And I think that's so important and perhaps a lesson to our national organizations. The other thing that I love to do is use that organization to bring true talent, operative talent, intellectual talent out from people who probably would never have a chance to present.
Hmm.
Like we gave the Lifetime Achievement Award to Hey Dung Joe from Pittsburgh last year, and he really hasn't been given enough, perhaps, national attention. He's not in the circles, but he is a true master of MIS, both in cranial and spine. So it's really neat. And then lastly, the organization in neurosurgery, we have such few organizations representing us as a profession. We have our national organization, we have the spine section. Orthopedics, on the other hand, is so much better at advertising what they do. That's why most patients they think of spine and they think of an orthopedic surgeon. They don't think of a neurosurgeon. So we need organizations to better show ourselves, other profession, our patients, what we do.
That's so well said. I mean, tell us more about how you get the message out. I've been lucky enough to be at your MINS meeting in Mackinac Island, I think it was. It was
Yep, yep,
fantastic.
yep.
I'd never been to a place like that before in my life. It was a very memorable experience. Costa Rica is beautiful,
I
especially.
did. I did give Mike Wang an invitation. No response. No response. But he's got open invitation to be a keynote speaker at this upcoming men's. Let's
Oh, calling them out.
let's get
Oh
it
my
out
God.
there.
Okay, so March, Costa Rica, March 14th, 15th.
March
Beautiful
12th
place.
to the 14th.
12th to 14th. Okay.
12th to the 14th.
Beautiful setting at the Marriott there in Los Buenos. I mean, Costa Rica is beautiful. What a fantastic place to travel to. If you have not been to Costa Rica, please go. It is a beautiful, beautiful country. So tell us more about the Mint. So this is a society, I know it's so dear to your heart. You set it up because you wanted people to come and really feel engaged, right? You go to the meeting, you're not just like in a big crowd, you're actually talking to people, rubbing shoulders, and you feel like in that kind of exchange, people actually come away saying, I learned something new that I'm going to apply at home, right?
Absolutely. But it's beyond that. This is a real head turner. So, what I also like to do is interview, surgeons, Mike is, he's so busy surgically, but we forget about the other side of us. So, last year, I took these surgeons deep sea fishing, found the premier captain. We were catching 100, 200 pound yellowfin tuna. We were having sashimi. We were bringing it to the restaurants and they were preparing it for us. They came away from that meeting with more than just a meeting, but a life experience. Costa Rica has a special place in
And
my heart
friendship with you.
and friendship and friendship for life. And so that's so important because I love to work with different things. I actually was doing research when I was in college in Costa Rica, found a baby sloth, raised it, and from that experience came out with a children's book, which we got the director of the Costa Rica Save the Sloth Institute, or
You raised a baby sloth,
I did
like in Ice Age?
that you cannot. This is just unheard of, Mike. I raised this last. I actually climbed when it got big enough. I fed it a carnation evaporated milk and um, and so forth. Got it big enough. Climbed the trees that the sloths used to eat the leaves in, and showed the baby how to eat the leaves, and then ate the leaves. And so it was an experience. Um, but from that came a children's book, and the proceeds are going to the Sloth Institute. So
And
when we
I will say, I have personally held and read this book, It's a great children's book. The illustrations are, bar none, top notch. Is it still available? Can people get it?
Well, so we have an issue getting a publisher. I would love to
Okay.
find a publisher. Right now, we're ordering it as in bulk and then giving it out. And what we ask is that there's a QR code on the back. You just donate as much as you want to the Sloth Institute. It's free, but please make a donation.
Well,
And
for our listeners, we'll include that link in the show notes here so you can donate to the Institute. And if anyone listening has connections in the publishing world and wants a great children's book, please reach out to us and we'll put you in touch.
And uh, and I call out to Marion McDonald. Marion McDonald is Neil Anand. We know Neil Anand. He's a Cedars, incredibly talented orthopedic surgeon. He's his wife worked for Disney as an illustrator for 25 years. And when I told him this story, she said, "Mick, can you write it up? And I want to take it and illustrate it." And so she is really the catalyst. She is a catalyst. I take very little credit for this. She is really the one that made this happen.
Yeah, well, as we come to the final segment here, I'm going to give you a choose your own adventure because, as we said before, there's so many things that we could talk about. And we were chatting about your hobbies and your passions, not just for maintaining your old hobbies, but making new hobbies later in life. And so I'm going to let you decide for the last segment of our conversation. Do we talk about something work or something outside of work? Because you were also telling us, in addition to the tech and the surgical devices you develop, you're working on a new stem cell project for disc regeneration. So, would you like to tell our listeners about that or perhaps about bow hunting?
Boy, that's a tough one. Um, you know,
It's a
I
good problem to have.
it yeah, I'm a passionate outdoorsman. Um, I actually have my bow down here. I could show you, but um, I think being out in nature and really doing it on my own. I my sons join me. Is something very special. And of course, every animal we harvest, we treat uh, very respectfully. All the meat is harvested. In fact, tonight I'll be having some venison tacos that are off the charts, and I have a yearly get together with the residents where I introduce them to all new kinds of wild delicacies. Wild turkey. Wild turkey is not considered um, a good meat. It is a wonderful meat if you properly prepared it. I will guarantee you, if you tried my wild turkey tacos, you would never eat another taco except the wild turkey taco. And then venison and elk and bear and of course different. So it's wonderful that I love to introduce people to new things, and I love to eliminate stereotypes. Oh, venison just doesn't taste good. Well, let me tell you, if you had my daughter's uh, venison Wellington, you would never go back. It is fabulous. So that's a lot of fun and the whole experience. I'm also a scuba diver, so I'm down at your neck of the woods, Mike, where we go deep sea scuba diving. Captain Frank down there in Tampa is one of the premier captains. We do commercial spearfishing. We'll go 100 miles out to the middle grounds. It's diving in deep water with a lot of sharks, and we'll harvest grouper and snapper and just it's really a cool experience. So I encourage people to try different things, and for me to bring full circle those neurosurgeons down to Costa Rica and get them on a boat and have them catch their first 200-pound tuna or blue marlin or sailfish, and to see that joy, to me, come on. Now, on the flip side, what's the other joy I love to see? I love to see the joy of my patients having over the top home runs, clinical outcomes. Doc, no, I've had pain for 20 years. I have no more pain. Two little incisions. They don't need any more surgeries the rest of their lives. Is that not what we want to achieve? And that's a big part of this MINS meeting. The theme of it is mastering minimally invasive spinal surgery. Let's get in the weeds. This is a step by step how to do this safely, effectively. I want to see Mike Wang's talk on endoscopic MIS inner bodies and stuff like that. What are the nuances? Don't hold anything back. What do you do to keep out of trouble and allow other surgeons to do this? So, just
Well, I have to say, in 25 short minutes, I think it's clear to anyone watching and listening that you have achieved and surpassed Maslow's hierarchy. The amount of self-actualization I'm hearing here, and the through line of everything that you've told us, from your life to your passions in and outside of the operating room, is that zest, that joie de vivre, and that incessant need to do things fully and right and proper, be it hunting out with your children or taking care of patients in the OR. Thank you so much for coming on the show to share your experiences with us. One more time for the audience, I want to let everybody know March 12th to 14th in Costa Rica, the MINS 15th annual meeting. Wonderful faculty, Neil Anand, who was mentioned, Pierce Nunley, a friend of the show. Sounds like a phenomenal experience. I can't wait to go one day and catch a giant fish, I guess. But in the meantime, Dr. Perez-Cruet, we're going to have you back on the show again. I look forward to seeing you at another CSNS meeting. Thank you for coming on the Neurosurgery Podcast.
thank you both. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, JP.